And we are live. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining another episode of Ryan Kittleson's Sculpting and Chatting. I don't know if Pixelogic got the correct name on this one. They keep putting a different name on my stream. But this is Ryan Kittleson. Welcome. Hi. Continuing with this gator snake thing. You can see the concept in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. Here's a higher res version of that just real quick in case anybody wants to take a screenshot of that so you can see while I'm working what this looks like. Yeah, we'll just keep going with this. You know, there's a lot of details to hit, a lot of moving pieces going on in this little sculpture here. This is a original concept by Kim Jung-gi. He died about a year ago, very unfortunately, a South Korean artist who is just an absolute genius. Drew amazing, fully detailed, hyper complicated scenes from memory, from imagination, no reference, and he would do these giant sprawling drawings, super realistic detail in just an hour or two. This piece I'm working on right now is one of his most simple drawings, and it's taken several episodes of this live stream just to get to where I am right now. So let's kick back, relax, hang out. Any questions you got, go ahead and put it in the chat. Happy to have everybody here. Happy to answer any questions people have. It's really hot right now where I live, Portland, Oregon. We've got a heat wave. It's over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've got a fan blowing on me. Hopefully that's not creating too much noise here in the chat. Let me know if it is an issue, though. I'll try to do something about it. All right, well, let's just jump right in and start sculpting on this. All right, so last time I went and put some nano mesh scales over the body, just kind of like a procedurally generated, randomized array of scales, which is kind of getting us there. I'm happy with it more or less, at least as a starting point on the back, but down the arms and legs, it's not quite doing what I want it to do, so I might scrap that and just do that manually. So let's just go ahead and jump in and keep working on this. I hope I saved the scale brush that I created. If not, I'm going to have to recreate it, which won't be too much of a hassle because I've already got a bunch of scales created here. So actually, I think I will have to recreate that scale brush, which is fine. I'll just show you guys how I did it. Let's see. Do I have that scale here in my subtools, which you guys can't see anyway? Just doing a little house cleaning of like random subtools that I've created as part of the process. Okay, looks like I'm going to have to recreate that scale brush, which is fine. I just need to grab one of these. I'm just going to actually delete the scales I put on the legs because I'm not really happy with how they turned out anyway. And they are done with nano mesh. So this is one single scale. And what I'm going to do is just turn this into a new brush. And I'll remember to save it this time. Hey, Steamworks TC. Good to see you in the chat. I want to put a little bend on the scale too. Just a slight bit of bend. All right, now let's make a new brush for this. All right, I got a new brush, and I'm going to go ahead and save this in my brushes now, so that I've got it just in case ZBrush crashes or if I need it next session. Let's see here. Z startup, brush presets, Gator scale. Hey, Mr. J. So while I start working on this, let's chat about something. Over the weekend, I went and saw Barbenheimer. Saw a double feature of Oppenheimer and Barbie. That was a good way to spend a Sunday. Spend 6 hours in the theater. That was nice. Anybody else go see that? I enjoyed both the movies a lot. I watched Oppenheimer first, but honestly, I think you could see it either way. Hey, Emilio Campana. Yeah, I'm turning this scale into a brush. So now that I've actually turned that into a brush, I don't need this particular subtool anymore. So let's see, with this brush, I can just drag it out. Actually, I'm going to do one thing here with this brush. I'm going to change, you guys can't see this. Actually, let me show you guys my screen. So you guys, this is my interface. It's my custom interface. It's spread out over 3 monitors. And yeah, it's just like all the buttons and sliders that I use on a regular basis. So let's see, with this brush, I want it to inset a little bit deeper. So we'll go to depth, embed, and I don't know, let's see if this works. Yeah, that's pretty decent. So yeah, with this, I'm just going to go manually place scales around the legs here. Yeah, simply you just have an object you want to turn into a brush. You go up to the brush menu, and you go to create insert mesh, and that just makes it so you can drag that one object out as multiple copies. So I'm just going to do that all around this leg here. I also went and saw Asteroid City recently. I also enjoyed that movie a lot. Let me hide that shoe. It's going to get in the way. VDM. So for VDM, I actually recommend getting my plugin, Ryan's Tools, because I have a feature in there that makes VDM brushes so much easier to work with. So there's just a simple, so if you go to Ryan's Tools, okay, actually, first of all, I'm going to type in the chat a link where you can get Ryan's Tools. And then if you go get that, make sure you get either the standard $5 version or the Pro $20 version, which is the full version. And there's a free version, but it's locked into an older version. So anyway, you go to Ryan's Tools in the Z plugin, and there is a high-res plane which you can insert into your scene. So you get this high-res plane, and then you can sculpt anything you want on it, really. I'm going to pull something out that's like there, something that really takes advantage of the fact that it's a VDM, right? And then once you've got something sculpted on here, then there's a simple button under Ryan's tools, which is Make VDM Brush. It's just a one-click solution. And then you can drag that out. I'm going to increase the subdivision levels on this. Boom. So it's just a lot simpler, more straightforward. If you do this without Ryan's tools, it's a lot more steps of like creating a plane, subdividing it, making sure that UVs are laid out correctly, creating the VDM, which is like kind of a convoluted process, loading it in as a brush, blah, blah, blah. You just, with this, it's just make a plane with Ryan's tools, boom, one click, turn it into a VDM brush, and you're done. 2 clicks. It's just, it's really fantastic. So everybody go get Ryan's tools. If you're making money with ZBrush, it's $20. If you're a hobbyist or a student, $5. And that's just one of the many things in Ryan's tools that just make everything so much easier, from like one-click primitives that pop it right into your scene at the correct scale, in the correct placement, automatically mirroring if you've got symmetry turned on, hollowing for 3D printing, so many things that just make life a lot easier. A trash bin, so you can delete subtools and then undelete them. Really, really great things. So, you can check that out. I've got videos on YouTube that explain all the features. Just going to delete that with my Ryan's Tools one-click delete. All right, let's just go ahead and keep putting on these scales here on the gator. You know, having those scales automatically distribute with NanoMesh was cool. You know, it's oftentimes it's a great way to get things done quickly, but sometimes you just got to go in manually. It's like that old video with Bill O'Reilly. We'll do it live. F it, we'll do it live, right? Oh yeah, just saw a message popped up in with the sculpt off. Anybody else joining that? I'm planning on joining in. You know, Mr. J, I don't disagree with you. Although I would like to continue to be in charge of developing it further. Maybe they should hire me as a full-time staff member. Let's see if I'm wasting time by putting scales down the foot. Yeah, nobody's going to see much further down than that. Let's put in a couple more just in case someone takes a peek way down the shoe. All right, that should be good. So this is this kind of, I would say, tedious and boring, but honestly, like, you just get into a zone with it, just doing this repetitive thing of drawing out scales. It's not too bad, really. If you think of something as repetitive and tedious and boring, you make yourself bored. But if you try to find the flow and the zen and the the enjoyment in it, you make it enjoying or enjoyable. If you think of it as boring and tedious, you make it boring and tedious. Try to enjoy it, try to have fun with it. Mr. J asked the question, tell us how your 3D journey started. That's a good question. So I've always had, as long as I can remember, a computer in the house. My dad was a computer nerd, and so we always had a computer going back to like a Commodore 64 or a VIC-20 back in the early 80s. And and so I always enjoyed art as well, and I enjoyed computers, and I enjoyed making art with computers. And early on, seeing movies like Tron, or anytime there was like movies with digital special effects, 3D, um, all that kind of stuff. I was just like really interested in it. How do you use computers to make art? Um, yeah, all that stuff. And then when I was about 18, I went to college, and I got a job as a graphic designer in the university like print media center, and we had some computers there that could run 3D software, and I pleaded with my boss to get us a copy of Ray Dream Studio, which was like a really rudimentary 3D program at the time. Even at the time, it was kind of crappy, but it was something to play with, something to get started with, and I just always stayed on top of the new advances and what new software was coming out, new technologies. Um, just always interested in making things, digital tools, and then I took a break from college for a while. Got a job at a video game studio for a while, but they went out of business. And I went back to college eventually because I never finished my degree, and I got um, a degree in illustration, traditional illustration, but I was using 3D tools a lot to do my illustrations, and this was back in like the early 2000s, and so still it was pretty early to be using 3D in like an art school setting, and so a lot of my instructors didn't really know what to do with me, but they liked the work I was doing, so I passed my classes and everything, and I kind of wanted to work at Pixar or ILM, something like that, doing CG for movies. But then I started teaching at Full Sail in Florida and did that for 6 years. And just kind of spent a lot of that time also just developing my own client base freelance, and ended up doing a lot of freelance for traditional artists. Artists who do like 2D art, but they wanted to like transition into doing like sculpture, 3D printing, and they didn't know how to use all the technology, and so they ended up just hiring me to do sculpture. So yeah, I end up doing a lot more in the fine art realm and a lot less with movies. Although I have worked on some movies, TV shows, video games, commercials, stuff like that too. So it's been a really cool journey. And I make my own art as well. Working for other artists pays the bills, but um, I do make my own art for my own personal enjoyment, really. And I think that's something that I talk about this all the time. If you guys are bored of hearing about AI, like, too bad, because I'm going to keep talking about it. Uh, but I'm not. I'm a bit worried about AI, but also at the same time, like AI is never going to take away my ability to enjoy the process of making art for myself. I might not be able to make money at it, but I'm still going to be able to make what I want to make, even if AI gets really good. You guys hear in the news about Disney creating a department to look into how they can use AI to make their films and TV shows? I was actually pretty disappointed to hear that. I think that a company as big as Disney has the resources to pay artists, real human beings, to make quality content. And I personally will boycott any movie that's made by a big studio with resources that makes its films with AI. I mean, I think if an independent, filmmaker, artist, whatever, makes something with AI, somebody who doesn't have the resources to pay a team of artists, okay, maybe that's something that's, I'm not going to worry about boycotting or whatever. But I think a corporation like Disney, they have the resources, they have the channels, they have the funds to pay artists to make things, and that they should do that. And if they're not doing that, I'm going to boycott them. Also, the writer's strike. Yep, I think I think it needs to be not just a strike of the workers, but a boycott of the viewing public to just refuse to watch anything that's made by a big studio with AI, or if they're not paying their writers or artists fairly. Because really, if AI can make a movie, we don't need big studios with big money to make movies. The whole point of a big studio with big money is to pay people with talent to use their talents to make something. If they're not going to do that, there's no point in them existing. Here I am getting caught away with chatting and putting scales where they shouldn't be. I'm getting distracted. I'm just gonna throw in a lot of scales on. I'll probably delete or rearrange some of them, after I get them all placed. Yes. Some of them are like overlapping the skin in awkward ways, or they're overlapping each other in awkward ways. So, there's always going to be some adjustments to be done after the fact. But yeah, once I got a bunch of them laid out now, actually, let me do the other leg here now. I'm sure some of these scales I'm going to make bigger, smaller, rotate them around differently, etc., etc. But I want to maintain kind of a half structured, half random arrangement. So it's kind of like there's a pattern or a structure to the arrangement, but it's also a bit random as well. Oh, that's interesting, Mr. J. Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people that have had existential crises around AI are still having them. And yeah, no, I totally sympathize. It's terrifying, actually. Curious to hear you say you began to accept it. Can you write a little bit more, Mr. J, about what that means to you to accept AI? It reminds me a bit of, what was it, Kent Brockman? I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords. If you feel like it, Mr. J. Yeah, that's an interesting point, Mr. J. I mean, I do agree. The things that AI does are really, really amazing. Like for someone like me who's like a computer art nerd, and I grew up just like every little advance in the industry and technology and the science and art of computer graphics was like infinitely fascinating to me. And what AI is doing with art and music and writing um, is something that I didn't imagine happening in my lifetime until a few years ago. And to see it blow up in just a year, year and a half, the way it has, is just absolutely mind blowing to me. In some sense, I do kind of hope it becomes a fad and passes away, that people will get bored with AI generated art because it's so easy, and but that it will inspire people to create their own art, um, I guess organically instead of generating it with AI. I think that would be a really good outcome, actually. Not that that's necessarily going to happen, but it would be nice. Um, is it interesting how NFTs just kind of blew up and then went away? I think there's a chance NFTs will come back once the culture and the technology has matured, and maybe it'll actually be a decent, viable technology. I don't know. Yeah, yep, I agree, noob. All right, so one thing I have to think about with these scales is how they transition. So I think for the tail, I'm not really going to put scales on, and then there's like the chest, and then there's the underside of the legs and arms, which I'm also not going to put scales on, and the neck, the forward part of the neck. So I need to think about how I transition from scale to not scale, and I think it's going to be kind of like like making them more sparse as they get laid out, and like maybe smaller and sparser, and then I can have kind of sculpted on sort of details that are kind of scale like, but kind of not also, that sort of transition. At least we'll try that. We'll see how that works. It might not work. One thing that's interesting about how AI makes art, if you get into like the technical under the hood stuff about how it works, it's interesting because it's similar to some of the ways that humans think about art while they're making it. So um, there's some before AI even art even came out, I was making a series of drawings where I would take a picture of just some like random natural pattern, like a water stain on the sidewalk, and I would see like, oh, does that shape remind me of something? And on that in Photoshop, I would take that picture and like draw, kind of exaggerate or bring out a recognizable shape in the chaos. Like sometimes people see like the face of somebody in a tortilla or something. Anyway, I was like kind of bringing that out and seeing, what my imagination sees in that shape. And that's kind of like what AI is doing a lot of times. Like you tell it to see a horse flying through the clouds, right? And then it creates some random shapes, and then it sees in that random shape what could be a horse flying through the clouds, and then it like brings out more detail in that and just goes through more and more rounds of that. And so it's interesting how it could actually inform new avenues for real human artists to think about how they want to make art for themselves. Yeah, I agree, Mr. J. If everybody can do it, then there's nothing special about it anymore. So if any random person can make a movie with AI and Disney can make a movie with AI, why would we watch a movie that Disney made with AI when we can just make our own movies with AI? Okay, yeah, I like these manually placed scales better than the result I was getting from NanoMesh. So yeah, I'm just gonna continue with this. I think there's obviously going to be like things to tweak and adjust and whatever, but yeah, I'm getting some good stuff here. Gonna throw in some manual scales. And then it's also going to be, let's see, something else I want to do here is kind of manually adjust some of these. bring some out or push some others in. That's a whole other task in and of itself. This sort of like tweaking phase. I think I also created some scales where I don't really want them to be, like coming down into this sort of inside part of the arm. I think is actually an area I wanted to keep scale free. Here I was getting carried away chatting, and I wasn't really paying attention to where I was putting my scales. That's so typical. That's so me. One of the cool things about Ryan's tools is so it's got this smart delete, right? So I have it hotkeyed to Control X. So if I hit Control X, it'll delete the subtool and put it in a trash, which I can undelete with Control Shift X. But also if I have some parts of a mesh hidden and I hit Control X, it'll delete just the hidden parts. Or if I have some parts masked, it'll delete just the masked parts. And it's really smart that way. It knows if there's parts masked, parts hidden, if nothing is masked or hidden. Now, if there's something's masked and hidden, it's smart enough to ask you, do you want to delete the hidden part or the masked part? And it can all be undone. You can undo any deletions. So it's just like super useful. I have not watched the podcast with Adam Conover where he talks to developers in OpenAI. He's the one that did Adam Ruins Everything. Am I correct, or is that a different podcaster? Anyway, I haven't seen that. Any interesting highlights from that, Mr. J? You want to comment on here? Really curious. All right, so I'm pretty happy with these scales, at least for right now, as like something to just create a base. Now I'm going to go in and kind of sculpt some like transitional detail onto this tail. And I'm slightly bummed out about something because I made this body symmetrically. It's hoping that I could use posable symmetry, but somehow the posable symmetry got lost or broken somehow, so it's not going to work. So that's okay. Whatever detail I sculpt on one side will just be, I'll have to sculpt again on the other side, and then it'll just add to the organic um, nature of it. All right, I'm going to hide my interface, and we'll just go back to seeing just the canvas. If you get Ryan's Tool Pro, you get some extra brushes. Here's one of them. It's this brush that it pushes down in one side and lifts up on the other, so it kind of creates a ledge or a fault line. And this is really cool for creating like overlapping shapes, right? Kind of like scales, honestly. You can make scales with this brush, right? You want to draw out scales. It's kind of cool. But even when you get these overlapping things on the tail here, pretty good brush for stuff like this. So here I'm trying to make some of these transitions between the sort of scaly parts and the not scaly parts. So trying to create some pseudo scales, some detail that kind of looks like overlapping scales, but not quite. Just try to help that transition. So Printing 3D wants to see my custom ZBrush UI. Yeah, let me show you that real quick. This isn't even actually the entire UI. There's still even some more that's getting cut off on this screen that goes down below. But yeah, this is over 3 different monitors. So I'm working on my laptop, and so my laptop uh, is like the lower screen, and then I have a screen above that, which is my canvas. So that my laptop is like this section, or I don't know if you guys actually, I don't think you guys can see my cursor with that, but the lower section of UI is in my laptop. The canvas is in the monitor above that, and then the interface to the left is on the left monitor, and I actually have a fourth monitor to the right, but that's not part of my ZBrush interface. That's where my reference is. Mr. J asks, when should I Dynamesh versus Sub D? It depends. There's a lot of different situations where you might choose one or the other, so it's really hard to just say use Dynamesh for this and Sub D for that. But what I will say is it takes experimentation. Sometimes you gotta just try it and figure it out. Um, but I mean, basically, oftentimes what I will do is I'll start with Dynamesh. Like if I just, starting a sculpture, I'd start with a sphere, start with Dynamesh just because it's more flexible for just mashing together different shapes and pushing and pulling and whatever. It's more malleable if I want to create holes through an object. And then once I've got a shape and I know that the overall structure of the shape is not really going to change much, and I just need to just I might just do tweaking and add detail. At that point, I'll probably do a ZRemesh, or if it's for like an animation character, like something that's or something that needs really clean topology, I'll do like a manual retopology, or I could just do a ZRemesh if quick and dirty is fine, and then I'll subdivide that and do sub D. But there's a lot of situations that might break that. Sometimes you just need to switch to sub D for something at the end of a project, often for 3D printing. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of special cases. So I don't want to just say, oh, ZBrush, or sorry, the Dynamesh is just for one type of thing and sub D is just for another type of thing. There's a lot of special cases. Casey. I'm sure she did. Yeah, Sonat. If you merge two subtools that have the same number of subdivisions, it is true. Sometimes those subdivisions get lost. I think what you want to do is make sure that both of those meshes are currently at the same subdivision level and then merge them. I actually wrote a special script just to make sure that it always sets both to the correct number and then merges them. And it even warns me if they don't have the same number of subdivision levels, so that I can fix that before I continue. It's like a little macro that I have. I'll probably add it as part of the next release of Ryan's tools, which will probably be coming out relatively soon. Thanks a lot, Casey. Yeah, Mr. J, it's really frustrating. That's why I recommend everybody get Ryan's tools so you can have subtool delete undelete. Yeah, I think the next version of Ryan's tools, I can't remember which is the current version of Ryan's tools that's currently out right now. Because I'm using 2.2, but I can't remember if that's an internal testing version or if that's the most recent one released. Somebody's on Gumroad and can see. Feel free to let us know. This piece, this is probably like the fifth session live streaming working on this piece. I'm really trying to push it kind of far. I take it to the finish line, you know. Especially since I got my own 3D printer now, I want to make these pieces uh, really print ready. So I'll probably go through the whole process of getting it ready for 3D printing as part of this live stream as well. And it's interesting the thing to think about. Probably have to do do things like make the teeth a little thicker, a little chunkier. Definitely this tongue. Probably have to print that as a separate piece and make it thicker, then glue it in separately. The spinning top, the propeller, gonna have to make that thicker. But it should be a pretty cool piece in the end. Really excited about it. Curious why you think that, Sonat, that 2D artists will change their career to 3D. I wonder why, because I think 3D is, I mean, AI is coming for 3D, just like it came for 2D. So Mr. J asked if this is work related, it needs to be done ASAP. How long will it take to finish that? So if I was doing this for a client, um, and just had to get it done, you know, working all day, every day on it, I would probably tell them a week. But usually actually ends up taking longer because if you're working for a client, you know, you send them turntables of the work in progress and they're like, oh, actually, I want this arm moved over here. I want the face to be bigger or whatever they tell you. And so that eats up time as well, kind of waiting for those feedbacks. So if I was just, if they told me just make it however I want to make it, just get it done and make it look great, I'd say a week. But if I need their feedback, then I would say probably at least 2 weeks. So I started this actually probably back in October, November, something like that. But then I took a break over the winter. I went to Colombia and Mexico for 5 months. So I didn't do a whole lot on this for a while. So just jumping back into it now. Mexico was great. I went to Mexico City and Oaxaca and Puerto Escondido and some of the towns around Mexico City, like Tepoztlan, Valle de Bravo, Tequisquiapan, um, several others. Can't remember all the names. Yeah, yeah, Mr. J. You know, I think it's unfortunate. I think there's a lot of pressure on artists when they show their in progress, like they show their sketchbooks or they show a live stream or something. They try to manicure the experience to like cut out anything that shows that they like, you know, had to struggle with a part or they didn't quite know, you know, the tools and had to research how to do something or they had to undo a bunch of work because something wasn't looking right. And they make it look like they just like nail it from start to finish like it's nothing. And a lot of that is editing or a lot of that is like a lot of prep work where they kind of did the piece once and worked out all the trouble and then they when they do their live stream they just do it again and they already know like exactly the best way to do everything. And it kind of creates an unrealistic expectation that you should just nail it every time. The actual process of creating art digitally is not that clean. Um, and so yeah, when I do my stuff, when I show live streams, I show all the ugly bits. I show all the undos and You know, the process is messy. And sure, you can try to make it look like you just nail it from start to finish with no struggle whatsoever. It's not realistic. I don't really know what they're doing. Like, do they think, it's makes them look cool or something to do that? But it's not that helpful. So 3D Pixel, the back scales are not VDM brush. Those are insert mesh brushes. So I just made one scale and drew out copies of it. Now I'm going to come in and try to like sculpt transitionary scales. Let's see, I'm going to get this other brush here. So like I was showing before, there's this kind of brush that um, sculpts on kind of a scaled or overlapping effect. Um, but it's a little bit more organic, right? More sculptural. And so just trying to use this to transition from the like more regular squarish distinct scales into something that's a little bit more sculpted on the surface. And we'll just see how this looks. I might end up not liking it or something. We'll see. Yeah, and that happens in the fine art world too. It's not just digital. Like a lot of times artists will show their sketchbooks and they're just endless pages of pristine, beautiful drawings. And it's like but that's not what a sketchbook is. A sketchbook is where you make your mess. A sketchbook is where you try things that fail. Is where you doodle and things are not pretty. It's where you get like weird ideas out. And if you're not allowing yourself to do that because you think that your sketchbook should be this gorgeous, pristine thing, you're actually like cutting yourself short. You're really missing an opportunity to go for the deeper things, to find those hidden nuggets of ideas. Um, yeah, it's really it's unfortunate. So 3D Pixel asked if I'm going to combine everything together for 3D printing. So actually for 3D printing, it's okay if it's separate pieces that are overlapping because that'll just get fused together in the print. Um, so yeah, I won't even need to Dynamesh it together into one mesh. It's just as long as they're overlapping, it's fine. It'll print solid. And actually, well, what I will do is I'll do a Boolean to combine it. Actually, it will all become one mesh together because I'm going to create a hollow interior subtraction object, and that subtraction object will, make the interior hollow, so I save costs on the 3D printing material. So from here, I'm trying to make these scales kind of even more subtle and kind of spread out. So as I transition down the tail, it'll just kind of transition to, um, yeah, just less distinct scales. So I can't even read your name, Hannibal Z Sculptor. Trying to read blue on blue text. Uh, yeah, this is a custom brush I made called Ledge Crease, and it kind of creates an overlapping or at least the appearance of being overlapping. It's part of Ryan's Tools Pro, so if you spend $20 to get the Pro version of Ryan's Tools, I'll type the link here for anybody who's coming in late. Get the Pro version of Ryan's Tools, you get my custom brushes as well. Cool brushes that do cool things. Oh, you have it. Nice. Oh, nice. Yeah, super smooth. That's great. Oh, yeah. Ledge crease is where it's at. I haven't really considered moving to Blender because I'm already like really well versed with Maya, and I have Maya, and I'm already well versed with ZBrush. So there's not a lot uh, in Blender to convince me to go. I mean, I know it's free, but I already know ZBrush and Maya. Like, gets me everything. And Substance Painter, I have that. I know that. So, um, not a lot of incentive to switch. Nothing against Blender. It's just I already know tools that are more industry standard. Oh, that's interesting, Casey. Yeah, as far as like industries that involve 3D art, I would say games is the one I have the least experience in. So the most experience I have is in the fine art industry, and the second most common is like uh, 3D for animation, like TV commercials, movies, visual effects, animation. Probably depends on your learning style. I think some people, if you already know one 3D software, it's easier to learn another. But for other people, learning one sort of creates expectations of how software should work. And then it's like learning another one, you kind of have to fight against those expectations, and it actually can be harder. It just depends. Halloween decor is pretty cool. Halloween's my favorite holiday. Well, actually, now my favorite holiday might be Dia de los Muertos, but Halloween's pretty cool. It's always going to be special. Everybody has been saying this live stream and last live stream that I look like Andrew Tate. I didn't even know who the guy was, and I looked him up after the last live stream. Yeah, apparently he got caught up in some kind of scandal. Uh, got in some legal trouble. Went away for a while. I don't know too much about it. Yeah, it's the this brush is the Ledge Crease brush. It's part of Ryan's Tools, my plugin. It's part of the extras that you get when you buy the $20 version. It comes with some extra brushes and alphas and uh, what else? Some materials, some extra goodies. So if you get that $20 version, you'll get this extra brush here. So highly worth it. Really good stuff. I'm actually deciding I didn't like those creases I just put in, so I'm going to undo those. Then after I draw in with the ledge crease, I'm using the Smooth Peaks brush. And what Smooth Peaks does is it only smooths the parts that stick up. It doesn't smooth anything that's like in a depression. And so it rounds out the top edge of that overlapping shape. So it just kind of makes a nice, real soft transition. So this way I can make a nice sort of gradual shift between the really distinct scales and kind of the more sculpted shape and detail of the body. I was reborn when I picked 3D as a career. Like if I died and reincarnated tomorrow, I don't know if I would pick 3D as a career, but if I could be born actually earlier, like so that I could like be I don't know 20 years old in 1985, I would pick 3D because then I could be like really at the very beginning of it, or maybe not the very beginning, but like the beginning of it starting to blow up in like movies and stuff, and then position myself as in like at the head of ILM or something. Yeah, I'd do that. Reborn with fresh spine, hands, and eyes. Honestly, doing 3D work isn't, as long as you're like, I started getting carpal tunnel syndrome using my mouse too much, and so I switched to using my Wacom tablet for everything. I don't even use a mouse anymore. I don't have a mouse. Um, and as long as you like take care of yourself, take care of your body while you're working, like I have a standing desk, so I alternate between standing and sitting. I exercise, I eat healthy. Like it's true, like sitting at a desk all day is bad for you. So if you're taking precautions like sitting and standing, not making the same repetitive motions all the time, making sure you're taking breaks to stretch, getting exercise, um, so yeah, it's not a bad way to live. It's not bad for your body. Um, I'm actually kind of glad that haven't really done much work in my life that's like really heavy physical labor work, like farm work. I actually have done some farm work. I grew up on a farm, actually. Um, and I've also, for a summer I did like construction work when I was a teenager. It's hard on your body, if you keep doing that year after year, you wear yourself out. You'll get injuries. I was never into like impact sports either, so I probably saved a lot of wear and tear on my body from that too. But I still do like, physical activity stuff. I go hiking, I exercise, but it's always with like some care and caution for my body because I want it to stick around in the long run. So honestly, I think this doing this career has been can't there's nothing wrong with doing this career and having a healthy body at the same time, as long as you take precautions and you're getting exercise and you're making sure not to overdo it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna put down Blender. If you want to do it, do it. Um, what Ryan's Tools would be like a competitor of Maya. Ryan's Tools, no, I wouldn't call it a competitor of Maya. I would call it an addition to ZBrush. Did I used to sculpt traditionally? I have done traditional sculpture, not a lot of it, but especially in college, I took like ceramics classes, and yeah, I loved it. I loved making stuff out of clay. I should do more of it. It's just faster to get my ideas out digitally. They're a world record for youngest 3D artist because I am 12. I don't know. I saw a baby once sculpt with its own poo, so it's gonna be hard to beat that one. Steamworks TC says, no matter what, exercising is the best thing you can do to alleviate as much pain as possible. Core strength, baby. Yes. Yep. I think everybody should exercise every day. We'll switch this from sculpting to a workout video next week. I'll show up in my spandex and headband, and we'll start doing jumping jacks. Let's do it. All right, so we're kind of hitting the home stretch here. I think the next session might be the last one. Still got about a half an hour left to go today, but I have to paint color onto it. Let's see. Let me finish. Let me do the eyeballs now that we're like getting close to the finish line. And we'll like text. Yeah, we'll paint color and do 3D print prep. And yeah, that'll probably be it. 7-minute abs. Mr. J never met a 3D artist who was also jacked. Well, you have now. I'm actually pretty fit. I'm not going to show off on camera, but um, I'm not like jacked, but I think anybody would say I'm fit. Oh, that was a question for Amogus. All right, let's get the texture on the eyeballs, shall we? So since I'm going to 3D print this, I'm not just going to paint the texture, I'm going to kind of sculpt the pupil and iris and like cornea in there. See how that looks. It's a little weird from the front. It's just going to take probably a couple tries to really get the position of these eyes looking good. And actually, you know what? It's kind of obvious now how the original 2D drawing kind of cheated the positions of the pupils to kind of make it look like good as a 2D drawing, but when it's in 3D, it's not going to be completely symmetrical. I'll have to like kind of cheat the positions. But then if you look at it from a different angle, it's probably going to look weird. So I'm going to try to find something that looks good as a sculpture, you know, in 3D and not necessarily cheated to look good um, as a 2D drawing from one perspective. So I'm going to try to move that pupil position. Actually, you know what I'll probably do? I'm going to make this as a subtraction object. It'll make it easier to position. Not a Zumba class, but a ZBrush class. How about that? And let me color this black so it's really visible. Okay, I think that looks pretty good at, I'm gonna bring that pupils in a little closer though, but it's not bad. Not bad at all. Thanks, Killin' PC. Take it easy. Okay, yeah, I like that pupil position mostly. I'm gonna play with just a little bit of alteration here because he is probably looking down. I mean, I don't know how he could see his shoe through his mouth, but hey, it's a cartoony, fun sculpture. Don't overthink it. All right, yeah, I like that position of that pupil. So now I'm going to kind of sculpt a little bit of a cornea, not a cornea, an iris around this. And we'll just color this yellow. All right, got some eyes in there. The 3D zone asks, can a person start working with basic working knowledge and a minimum experience and learn while working? Uh, Probably not. I would say you need more than basic working knowledge and minimum experience. I mean, obviously minimum working experience, yeah. But I think to get even a basic job in 3D, you have to have a portfolio that shows you can do the job. And I mean, some jobs are more advanced than others. You don't necessarily have to have an amazing portfolio, but you do need to show that you can do the work that is involved in the job that you're applying for. Uh, and sometimes for an entry level position, portfolio doesn't have to be anything, but it's different in every market, every job, every position. So definitely put the effort in. If you want to get a job doing 3D, uh, put that effort in, try it, see what you can do. Mr. J asks if I know how to do low poly props that's baked. Can I be hired? I know ZBrush, Maya, and Painter. I mean, yeah, there's definitely jobs for doing low poly props. If your portfolio looks good, I don't see why not. Yeah, 3D zone. You could. I mean, it's definitely possible. Of course, nothing's guaranteed, but go for it. Would I ever do portfolio reviews as a stream? Um, I could. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. It's not something I'm super interested in doing, but if there was a lot of interest from people, um, I would consider it. Yep. It's all about portfolio. Just showing up to an employer and telling them that you know ZBrush or Maya or whatever isn't going to do anything. You got to prove that you can make something good with it, and that's in the portfolio. The portfolio proves that you know how to use it. Because there's a difference between just knowing, what the features are and how they work, and actually being able to produce something decent with them. That's what matters. That's correct, Casey. Um, yeah, I mean, there's lots of places online where you can post your portfolio 3D zone and get feedback. Yeah, something really good. If you have a friend who is in the 3D industry that is willing to kind of take you under their wing and show you what's up, that's a really valuable thing to have. So when it comes to finding a mentor, yeah, it's true. You can pay one, and everybody charges their own rates. But um, if you make a friend who's willing to do it for free, that's a bonus. But then how you find one? Well, I mean, you just have to make friends with people. You have to actually engage with the community, and it can take some time. You don't just drop in and say, "Hey, who wants to be my 3D mentor friend?" It doesn't work like that. So, just give yourself time to get enveloped in the community, start making stuff, start posting stuff, ask for critiques, take those critiques like a mature adult. Somebody tells you that your sculpting sucks, don't throw it, but take that criticism like a grown up and accept it and actually put effort into getting better. And as you do that and you engage with the community, time goes on. If you're friendly and open, you'll make friends with people, and some of them might be willing to help you out, give you a little extra beyond just comments in a forum. That's a lot of careers have started that way. So it just takes time and persistence and effort, like I guess. Gumroad is not really a portfolio; it's a place to sell things. Yeah, I mean it's true. A lot quit. I don't know if it's sad to say. I mean, I think some people should quit. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but like some people just their talents are somewhere else, and that's okay. Um, but then, unfortunately, some people who actually have talent maybe quit because they can't take the criticism, which I guess is unfortunate. Yeah, that's true, Casey. I mean, it just takes time. A lot of times it takes longer than you think it's going to take. But if you want to make something that looks good, you got to put in the time it takes to do it. And it takes doing a lot of projects too. Like, don't jump into your first project thinking that you're going to create the next, you know, top shelf of ZBrush Central sculpture. It's going to be, I mean, if you're starting off from scratch, you might get a top shelf piece after your 40th piece, you know. Do the best that you can on a piece and then accept, you know, maybe it doesn't look great, but move on, do another piece, do your best on that, move on, do another piece, do your best on that. And with enough practice, eventually you can be good. I haven't saved the entire session. Maybe I should do that. Oh man, can you imagine if ZBrush crashed at this point? I lost everything I did today. I would be so bummed out. Just gonna come in and emphasize some of the sculpted details with color, or just like a little bit of shadow, just to kind of emphasize some of the bigger structural shapes. Thanks for joining, Casey. Have a good one. See how it looks with the screen space occlusion on it. That's pretty cool. Yeah, we're getting close to the finish line on this one. So today is almost over. I'll yeah, try to do the final kind of detail work, finish this guy up or sorry, next week, Wednesday, when we do the next session of this. Same time, next week, Wednesday. And I'll try to get it prepped for 3D printing as well next week. So be sure to tune in for that. Time's up for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thanks for your comments and your questions and joining in the chat. It's amazing to have you guys here every time. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time.